I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Flatlander Kennels Podcast with Chris Jobman. And I am joined today by none other than Chris Jobman himself. How's it going today, buddy?
Hey, buddy, how are you doing? I couldn't be better. Well, besides my knee. But other than that, I couldn't be better.
Yeah, just got to get you healthy and back in the game.
Oh, yeah. It won't be long.
So today we've got a bunch of Q&A questions. We're going to jump right into that because we've got some backed up. We'll get to as many as we can. Also want to remind you that we are now partnered with Big Cottonwood Retrievers. Last time I said kennels, I'm sure that Grant's going to slap my wrist about it. As I said that to him before. It's retrievers. So.
Big Cottonwood Retrievers. But, now we're happy to announce Big Cottonwood Retrievers jumped on to be a partner of our podcast. Grant's a good friend of mine. He's got a really good breeding program. He lives about 45 minutes to an hour east of me. They use a lot of our stud dogs for their breeding programs. We train a lot of their puppies. Good dogs, good person, good breeder. Anybody wants a puppy, looking for litters down the road, get a hold of Big Cottonwood Retrievers, Grant and Sherry Hatch. Elliott will have their website and their Facebook page in our notes. But thanks for joining in, and here we go.
All right, let's jump right to it. You want me to just go straight down the list on this one? I know I added to the list I sent you because I'd miss them. I'm going to start with the one on three-handed casting. Is that all right?
Yep, let's do it.
Luke Brocksmith. He says, hi, all. I'm currently training my first retrieving dog. June, she is an 18-month-old Boykin Spaniel with one waterfowl and pheasant season under her belt, as well as one AKC junior test pass. Currently, I am working on three-handed casting and lining with her. I introduced casting back in May, but after listening to some of the flowchart episodes, I decided I need to rework through three-handed casting. Ever since starting casting back in May, she takes the back command well and will release on it, but I can't get her to release on over. Angle backs, she has picked up really fast and does great at turning in the direction of the hand I'm using, but on overs, I can't get her to release on over. I stick my hand out and will take a step, and she will look at me. She will look at the over pile, but I can't get her to release on over. I usually have to say over, June, or over, go get it. And then she'll go. Even if I throw a dummy at the pile, she doesn't want to release on over. Just wondering if anyone has any advice on helping her to release on over, or if it's just going to be a time and confidence thing that she will get eventually. Any advice on how to help her along would be greatly appreciated. Also, we are located in north central Nebraska and currently do not have any training buddies. If anyone is in the area and wanted to train together, I would be willing to make some drives. Her biggest shortcoming at the hunt test we've been to was what I think was overstimulation from being around so many new people and dogs. She's a pretty shy pup.
Yeah. Well, so go back to the three-handed casting, get rid of your angles, and get rid of all that. All you need is a back pile and two over piles. Make sure that she can see the bumpers, very visible. And I hate to tell you to do this, but I like to reserve pressure for going straight backs, like back, nick back, and forced to pile and all those things. But if you have to, just put your pile out there, throw a pile off to the right, throw a bumper over your right or left over, and just you say her name. It doesn't really matter. Just say her name, like June, fetch, or fetch June, and eventually you'll be able to just give the arm signal that she should go over there without saying it, because I think she's just worried about not making a mistake. She doesn't want to make a mistake, and I guess he didn't say, is there a long check cord on her? You got a rope on her? If she turns the wrong way, how do you stop her? Because if you don't have a rope on her and you said back and she goes over and then back or whatever, and you go, no, here, get in here. Now you're training a Boykin, they're the off breeds. They're very difficult sometimes. So they lose their confidence pretty quick. So you got to be careful with that. I would put a check cord on her and just simplify. If she's confused, simplify. if you need to make that over bumper 3 feet, it doesn't have to be very far. Make it 3 feet, then make it 5 feet, then go to 10 feet, then go to 20 feet. I mean, but she has to be able to see them. So make it simplify that whole thing. And if it has to be a 3 foot deal, it's a 3 foot retrieve. That's all that matters. And you just got to get her moving. And you could say fetch, Nick, fetch. I don't know. It doesn't say collar conditioning. It doesn't say force fetch. So I don't know about. I hate to tell you to give pressure without knowing the background of the dog. But you could say fetch. That sort of anything. Get her moving at any point in time, and eventually she will move when you give the overs anyway. But honestly, you're over. You can say over. It's not a big deal because after the tee, if you're following our program, after the tee, your overs you're done anyway. We don't give overs after the tee. We just keep everything at angle. So it's not a big deal to say over. But like I said, simplify it and try to get her to move without any voice.
All right, Alexi Hahn. I've got a 19-month-old JH prepping for senior tests. We are in the transition phase doing water pattern blinds. Anybody got advice on slow, loopy sits in the water? On land, whistle sits are crisp, but in water, they are slow. They slow way down. He always stops, but it's consistent with how fast he turns. In swim by, his sits were good, but now that we have gone to pattern blinds, it's been messy. Any help would be appreciated.
So yeah, you blow it. So I'm thinking the dog's collar condition, force fetched, all the good stuff. So if it's not sitting quick in the water, use some collar pressure. Blow the whistle, give a correction, blow the whistle again. If it's loopy sit, you could blow the whistle, blow the tweet, blow the sit whistle, and then go tweet, 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 tweet. Call her to you to square her up. Collar pressure, tweet, have her look at you, then cast. So you don't be afraid if your dog is properly collar conditioned and water forced properly and all those things. Don't be afraid to use the collar in the water to get her to stop quicker. That's the only way you're going to do it. You've got to be able to put collar pressure on in the water. That's how you're going to fix that.
Jeb Hart, 2-year-old yellow male, 1 master pass. Getting a dog to tread water on whistle stops, running water blinds, and not swim towards you. Does great on land and lunging water, but when swimming, he doesn't want to sit, stops and turns quick, but doesn't stay still. Yeah.
So this is a prime example of more information would be really good. What I mean by that is, did that dog do forced or water force? Did it do water tee? Did it do swim by? Did you teach it to sit in the water during those during your water force and your water tee phase? Did you do all that? Now there are some dogs that tread water really, really well, and there are some dogs that don't. So if it's coming to you, I would take this dog back to like a water force. You don't want to work on a bunch of this stuff when you're trying to run blinds, because then your dog loses all kinds of confidence on blinds, and you quit running the blind retrieve to work on whistle sits in the water, and it just ends up being a mess. So I would go back to swim by pond or wherever you water force this dog and taught to sit in the water, and I would just send it across the water, and when it's en route, you blow a sit whistle, and when it turns around and starts coming to you, you just give a verbal back. And you get it to turn around and go back, then you stop it, call it to you, give it a verbal back, call it to you, give it a verbal back, call it to you. Keep doing that until the dog stops moving. And it could be right back, stop, call in, left back, stop, call in, right back. And you're just doing like a yo-yo out in the middle of the water. And your dog will learn to just eventually they'll just give up, they'll start treading water. Because they're like, what do you want me to go back? You want me to come in? You want me to go back? You want me to come in? And eventually they'll learn how to tread water. Now, some dogs do it better than others, and some dogs don't. But you really need to get this dog treading water as well as it possibly can before you're moving into a bunch of water cold blinds. Because if you're running master test, you're going to be running down the shore water blinds. You're going to be running next to cattails, all the stuff. And if you can't get to sit quick, you're screwed. They're going to disappear, and you're going to get in trouble. So do that little yo-yo thing I'm talking about in the water. That will help a ton. When it comes to you, verbal back. When it goes back, let it swim a little bit, stop. Again, and then just keep yo-yoing until the dog quits moving.
When a dog treads water, is it just really slowing down its movements, or do they actually kind of float and not move their legs?
I've seen dogs that tread water with all 4 feet. I've seen dogs that their back legs completely quit working. Their butt comes up out of the water, and their front legs, they'll roll over almost. They're so good at it. Like they just start floating. And like I said, usually it's the dogs that are a little more amped up, like Georgie and those type of dogs that struggle with treading water because they're impulsive and they want to just go. They want to go. Like the lazier dogs are really good at treading water because they don't want to do it anyway. The dogs, that's a fact. And the dogs that are a little bit more amped up have struggled with that, and so that's one thing we really we take pride in our dogs in the water is stopping well and treading the water real nice, and making them do those things. That it just takes some time.
All right, next one, Will Davis. He says, I've got a question for the podcast or anyone who might have an opinion. Working on sit to pile, and my dog is now refusing to be sent on single marks and hand signals. I used a long check cord and stopped him when he was about halfway one time. He's been force fetched and forced to pile. I took a couple days off from sit to pile. I'm trying the game talked about in the Sit to Pile podcast, making him sit when he's walking around, then throwing a mark with hand signals. Any other suggestions? Had to get out the tennis ball to get him to stop refusing to be sent.
So when he says, well, are you throwing from your side? He won't leave. Are you trying to throw marks in the field by somebody? This is where we need some more information too. What kind of signals are you throwing? From your side? Are you having somebody throw for you? They're coming out of a winger? Are the marks hidden?
I bet he's throwing them by him. If he's getting the tennis ball out himself, then I bet you that he's doing this by himself.
Yeah, this shouldn't stop a dog from wanting to go and get a mark. I would just simplify it. Make it a game. If the dog doesn't want to leave on marks, maybe let it break a little bit. Make it a game. Introduce like a tennis ball or a fun bumper. Anything. Just make it more fun. The dog is obviously confused. I'm trying to read through this. I'm trying to read the gray area here because this shouldn't have made the dog stop marking.
So he was working on sit to pile, and the dog is refusing to be sent. After doing sit to pile, the dog's not even going on marks.
Yeah. So this dog might be a more sensitive dog. I would definitely simplify. Make it as easy as possible. Maybe start throwing, white bumpers on mowed grass, or birds on mowed grass, something that the dog could see and go get. Because obviously he's confused. I'd quit throwing marks in the cover for a while and make it simplify because something in his brain his dog is not clicking. So simplify your marks, make it more fun. You can still work on your pile work, but get the dog out of the funk that it's in right now before doing that, and then move on. I think that will work. We just simplify it a little bit.
If the dog has been through forced to pile, can you just do some nicks?
You should be able to say back, and you can say fetch, and the dog should go get it. The dog, if you say fetch, the dog should. But if it's a 200-yard mark, you say fetch, that dog's not going to go get that. So simplify it. Throw a 25-yard mark out so the dog can see it. And if the dog doesn't leave your side, walk forward to the dog and maybe say nick fetch. If the dog has been probably collar conditioned force fetch, it should understand that and go get the damn bird or bumper, whatever it is. But make it simple so the dog can see it on the ground and then use force if you have to. But I try not to use force if you don't have to, but if that's the last resort. If you have to, then use force.
In a situation like that, is it a chance there was too much pressure used through force fetch and force to pile?
Maybe,
the dog
maybe I don't know. I'm trying to. That's what I was trying to say that without saying it. But the dog seems to be confused by something. I don't know if he got in trouble or if he's nervous, but he seems like he's confused because this shouldn't stop the dog from marking.
I'd be really curious as to what the dog's original motivation levels were for retrieving.
Yeah, me too. And that's what kind of desire did the dog have to start out with? Was it bird crazy, bumper crazy? Do whatever you got to do to simplify.
All right, let's go on to Cody Berry. Hey, Chris and Elliott, love the podcast. I've especially enjoyed the flow charts as I am training my first lab. And by the way, how many more do we have on the flow chart?
We're basically about done. That flow chart was teaching a dog how to teach a dog to handle. we stopped on simple cold blinds. Now we can talk about cheating singles now and how to fight factors with casting and how we teach dogs to run straight through handling, and we'll start talking about
we're
all
done.
that.
Other than really
We're done with the flow chart. That flow chart is basically how to teach your dog to handle. That's what the steps that we go through to teach a blind retrieve. Now we're going to start getting into more, teaching doubles, teaching triples, teaching marking concepts, simple, cheating singles, that sort of thing. How, my philosophy on how to teach downshore water blind and corrections. Mm-hmm. That's where we're going to go to now. But we need to get through the flow chart before we did all that so people understood where I was coming from.
And this question must be from Wilgo because it says, is there going to be a podcast on simple cold blinds? And we did that.
Yeah,
we did that. So we'll move on.
Yeah.
Jake Jersit, question for anyone with good advice. I have a 6-year-old lab that has been a solid hunting dog for my needs and does solid double marks and can get through a triple 50 to 70 yards on the triple. We recently joined our local retrieval club, and I would like to get her a senior and season title, but need to work on handling. Does anyone have any suggestions on training an older dog to handle, especially one that does not care for pile work?
It's just you've got to do the steps. There's no shortcut. We got a dog in one time years ago named June, who was a golden retriever. She was 7 when we got her. She just was force fetched basically. And we ended up getting her HRCH on her. She ended up being a pretty decent dog, but it took a while. That saying you can't teach old dogs new tricks. That's true to a point. They do have some habits they need to get into. Just because the dog doesn't like pile work doesn't mean it doesn't need to do pile work. I don't like to go to work every day. You don't like to go to work every day, but we go to work every day. We have to go to work. They have no choice. They're the dog. You're the human. You make them do it. Just because they don't like it doesn't mean they don't have to do it. But you are going to have to follow our flow chart on teaching a dog to handle, and you're going to have to do all the steps. Just because a dog is 6 doesn't mean you can't do it. Now, it may take you a little bit longer. And don't get discouraged and don't get in your bite. Oh, my buddy's dog's 2 years old and already runs senior. Don't get into that habit. Don't get into that. Don't fall into that BS. Train your dog to the best of your ability. Follow the steps. And if your dog is 8 years old, when it gets to the senior level, it's 8 years old. It doesn't really matter. You just got to do it and do the best of your ability right now.
Yep. Dave Neznansky wants to know what to wear for footwear on wet days.
Anything but Crocs. Crocs will kill you.
What do you wear?
I don't wear Crocs. I wear tennis shoes, or I wear them little deck boots, you know what I'm talking about. They make those little short deck boots. I wear them deck boots a lot. There's a lot of good companies out there that make them. I wear deck boots and tennis shoes. I don't wear. I hate people that wear Crocs. They will kill you. They're dangerous. So I don't wear flip flops or Crocs or anything like that because I'll fall.
I hate wearing flip flops out in public. I always feel like if something happens and goes down, as unlikely as that may be, I don't want to be in flip flops.
No, I don't wear flip flops. My feet are as white as a ghost. I mean, my legs are super super tan, and I look like I'm wearing white socks. That's no kidding. I used to trade with flip flops and stuff all the time, but it just killed my feet, so I quit doing that.
No, I guess I'm just paranoid. If I get in a situation where I got to fight or run, I don't want to have flip flops on.
Or just take the flip flop and throw it at them. Throw a flip flop. Yeah.
All right, Josh Goman. Do you change your training setups based on the test you have coming up? Example, the test usually throws short marks under 40 yards, or the grounds have more trees or natural ponds versus tech ponds. If so, how do you balance the long marks in the training?
Yeah, we definitely do that. So if you know you're going to run with judges that don't like to say those judges like to throw longer marks, tighter marks, and you know these judges, then we practice it before we go there. If you know the judges like to throw shorter marks, like a hunting scenario, then we do that. If you know we're going to be in tech water, we train in tech water. Like the week before we go to a test, we try to I know where a lot of places where we're going. I know what the water looks like. I know what some of the judges like to do, what they don't like to do. So we will, being in this thing for 25, 30 years, you understand what, the tendencies of a lot of judges and what they like to throw. So, yeah, we for sure, that week before we leave, we train to the judges for sure, and or the grounds that we're going to our best of knowledge.
Do you have any particular setup that if you going out to a hunt test and you see the setup and you're like, oh man, like, is there anything that you are least happy to see as far as a setup?
I don't like, I'm not a big fan of interrupted stuff. Like poison birds. I mean, we do it all the time in training, but it's hard to judge marking with that. I don't, master test, sometimes you get a nice open master test where it's, very, distinct areas of the fall. The dogs can make good decisions, find the bird, bring them back. There are some people out there that throw everything between 11 and 1. You have 3 marks and 2 blinds between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. Yeah. That's not cool. That's not cool at all. I mean, the dogs have no, that's more of a field trial type of thing, but the dogs have no, room for error or something like that. And I get it, dogs training methods. I understand it. I understand why they throw it. I personally don't like to run tests like that because if the dog misses a mark, then it really struggles to recover and find the mark without getting in trouble with the other mark. So that's what I don't like. But other than that, we just, there's some judges that are on our no list that we don't run underneath because, there's some people out there that aren't in it for the dog. They're in it for, let's get these guys or let's get these dogs. Let's see what these dogs can do. And we've talked about that before. And that's just not a good attitude to have coming into a judge and a hunt test.
Some of the last test we were at, there was 2 marks that were so close together. And Georgie actually ended up switching from one to the other. There was a tree in the middle of them. And I'm like, okay, don't let her switch. Don't let her switch. And she gets behind that tree. And I'm like, oh no. And next thing I know, she's got the other mark in her hand. I was really concerned. I thought that that is taken really, really seriously. And it seemed like maybe, I don't know, how harshly do they judge on
Well,
switching?
if you're running an AKC master test, a switch, which in AKC master, a switch is leaving one area of the fall and going to the other area of the fall. You're out.
Right.
If you run a blind first, that's an old fall. So if you run a blind first, that's one thing I don't like as well is you run a blind first that's really, really close, like a big blind pole sticking out of the ground, and you run a blind first that's really close to an old fall, especially a memory bird. Now that's just a trick. You're inviting a dog to try to go and switch to the blind retrieve when the pole's sticking out like a sore thumb. That ain't the dog's fault.
I've had 2 hunt tests this summer where both of these were really tight. She put her nose down on where the old fall of the bird she just picked up was. She put her nose on it and then came back around. She overshot it, came back around and got it. I thought I was automatically out on that one, and I wasn't. And then the one I just referenced, the 2 times I'm like, I feel like I should be out, but I'm not out. And I sometimes I feel like maybe that the judging from things I've seen could be a little bit stricter. If I pass, I want to feel really proud about it. Well, and I just think sometimes they could just tighten it up a little bit.
Well, but you got to understand something too. If the areas of the fall are overlapping, like if they're that close, you got to understand something. You have to look through the dog's eyes, not a human's eyes. That may look like a long ways to us, but for a dog, it's 1 or 2 bound leaps, and they're in it. You can't. They're not a precision. They're not like we are, where we can. It's right there. They don't. They rely on their eyes, their nose, the wind, the factor, the terrain. They when they're running to a mark, they're getting all this information when they're running to help them make a good decision. When your areas of the fall are overlapping, how are they supposed to make a good decision when the areas of the fall are in the same spot? You know what I mean? And let's face it, the thing about a hunt test, there's a rule in there that says, would you hunt with this dog? Part of a hunting dog is its nose.
Yeah.
So if you have an old fall blowing wind across in or areas of overlapping and that wind's coming across an old fall, how can you expect the dog, if it's, 10, 20 yards away, to not go over there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what they do. They're hunting dogs. They're hunting for the bird. That's the judge's fault for putting areas, overlapping areas. Because and like you said, you passed. Well, what ends up happening a lot of times is these judges, and I'm thankful that they donate their time and judge, but a lot of times they'll set up something they didn't realize they set up. They went, oh shit. Now they back themselves into a corner. You're either going to fail everybody or you're going to pass 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you set up a test that invites you to either fail them all or pass them because it wasn't a well-designed test.
So they get a few dogs in, they're like, oh crap, we're gonna have to be a little more lenient than maybe.
Yeah. Because that's good for the judges because they realize, hey man, we screwed this deal. And most of the time they won't admit it, which is fine. But if they set up something they didn't really mean to, they didn't see the problems with it, they didn't really mean, and they pass dogs, good for them. Because it's not the dog's fault they set that up.
That makes sense.
What I mean? Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah. Trevor Hayden looking for help on finishing blinds. My dog is running pretty good blinds recently. If the bumper pile is, say, 3 to 5 feet into the tall grass or behind a wall of cattails, I'm having trouble getting her to push through that wall. If I get her right to the front of the wall, she will take the wall or shoreline and not keep pushing back. She runs land blinds 175 to 200 yards, water blinds 130 to 140, and she's almost 3 years old.
Okay, Trevor, have you thrown marks into something like this? So if you're wanting your dog to push through cover, I would shorten up and I would throw marks into a cover like that, but make them short marks. And because here's the thing, if you haven't thrown marks for a dog in cover like that, how do you expect it to run in cover like that when you're running a blind retrieve? So throw some marks into that cover. Teach them to go through those walls of cover like that. Just teach them to do that with marks first and then the blinds. And when you do it on blinds, if it's not, going through the cover, walk up to it, close the distance, and try to cast it through the cover. And if that's not working, sit the dog down, make it look at you, take a bumper, throw it over the dog's head into the cover, and then cast it back. You just got to teach the dog to punch through the cover, and usually you just need to simplify everything you do it. So start with marks, short, easy marks in cover to get them to go through the cover. If that still doesn't work on blind retrieve, stop them, throw a bumper over their head into the cover, cast them back in there. Now be careful doing this. If you're running a blind retrieve and your dog is going through 3 to 5 foot tall cover or wall of cattails, how can you run a blind retrieve from then on out when you can't see the dog? Mm-hmm. So unless it's wide open back there and they see the bumper laying right there, how are you going to control the dog once it goes through that cover? But like I said, simplify it, throw a bumper through the cover, just make it a game. Let them know that it's okay to go through that cover.
Dan Jurgens wants to know about introducing young dogs to retrieving live flyers. When do you do it? What's your approach to this?
We start our 7-8-week-old puppies chasing clipped wing pigeons from the very, very first day. They're not live flyers, but we're not shooting over them yet. But we are teaching our 7-week-old, 8-week-old puppies to chase clipped wing pigeons all the time. It's a very, very important. I would start that as quickly as possible. Not necessarily live flyers, but if you're worried about, clipped wing pigeons and dog chasing birds, we do it right away. And I don't do live flyers until the dog. And now let's just say now you got an 8-9-month-old dog. Let's just say when the dog is running good marks, good land and good water marks, has a good area of the fall, knows how to hunt the area of the fall, and he doesn't put on these big gorilla hunts on a dead bird throw, a controlled bird. Now, because what you don't want to do is, so just say you have an 8-9-month-old puppy and you're throwing marks out there, let's say you're throwing a 150 yard mark. And for them to find that mark, they put on a huge gorilla hunt. So you need to shorten up your marks so the dog doesn't have these huge gorilla hunts and goes in and finds a bird relatively quickly. And that teaches the dog how to hunt in the area. If you throw live flyers for a dog at too young of an age, that promotes these huge gorilla hunts because a scent is out there from all the other dogs, and it's got to differentiate the scent. There's plenty of time to teach a dog to hunt a flyer. What you don't want to do is teach a dog to hunt a flyer and start doing gorilla hunts because the dog is just hunting. And then the next question Dan's going to have in a year is how do I stop my dog from having gorilla hunts? So I know Dan's a great dude and does a really good job with his dogs. But don't be so worried about introducing your dog to live flyers. Make sure that they're marking the area of the fall well and they're hunting intelligently to find the bird, and then introduce your live flyers.
Gemma McNeil I just finished up listening to episode 12, and at the end of the episode, there was talk about seminars. Will there be any in-person seminars going on this year? And if so, where would I find that information?
She actually emailed me, and I need to get back to her. We don't have any seminars. I've got a lot of requests for seminars right now. And she actually emailed me about going to Atlanta and doing a classroom seminar, which I would be ready. I would do that if I had some time. But right now we don't have any seminars. Gemma, I will email you back and I'll get a hold of you about that and we can talk about it.
All right, man, we're buzzing through. These are actually our last question we've got here. Eric Brandel. Elliott, this question is inspired by your other podcast. And for those of you that don't know, my other podcast is the North American Waterfowler. 2 episodes a week. Chris has been on there quite a bit. So in between our episodes, if you want to hear other waterfowl stuff, the North American Waterfowler podcast. Chris, in your experience, what makes an amateur training group truly successful? Beyond just having good dogs, what are the key attributes or skills, whether in people, structure, or mindset, that really elevate a group from good to great? Quick background on where I'm coming from. My core training group has 3 handlers. Each handler has 2 dogs. Among them, we have one titled Grand Retriever Champion, and the other 5 are HRCH. 2 of the dogs are MH, 2 dogs are SHs, and 1 more dog is preparing for Master later this summer. We work well together, but we're always looking to improve. I'd love to hear your perspective on how groups like ours can keep pushing forward.
Eric sounds like a great training group. That's a lot of nice dogs. For that small of a training group, that's some really good dogs.
For sure.
So Eric, whatever you're doing it right. The biggest problems I see with training groups is, for one, is ego of a human. The egos of human beings will destroy dogs. Put your damn ego away. That's the biggest downfall of dogs and dog training is the human ego. Trying to keep up with your training partners. That's another thing, because every dog, manifests itself and develops differently. I think a good training group, number one, they have to be supportive of you. One thing that's really cool out here, I'm not a pointing lab guy by no means at all, but there's a group of pointing lab people out here that are really nice guys. The Scott Dunns and Jim, the Swindles, and there's some really nice guys out here. Todd Whalen, all them guys, and they're all pointing lab guys. And if you go to the master test in this region, there'll be 5 or 6 of them there, maybe 7 of them there. And when their dogs are running, they stop what they're doing and watch their group training dogs run. It's really cool to see. They support them all. They clap at them all. And you can tell, because they're all pointing lab guys, and they support every dog that's running. They watch their partners run. It's really, really cool. And that's what you got to have. You got to have support. You got to have friendship, and you got to surround yourself that are people that have, dog experience and are students of the game. And I mean, real students of the game. And you have to be, as a training group, help your other partners. So if you guys say you're running a triple of the blind one day, and I've seen this happen in other groups. So if you're running a triple and a blind, and I'll be like, well, why did you do it? Because I know your dog can't run a triple yet. Well, that's what everybody else is doing. Don't do it just to keep up with the group. Train your dog. And if your training partners are giving you grief about not training your dog, then you need to find a different partner, because they should be supportive of what you need to do. I think everybody should chip in on birds and equipment and reloading and hand throwing. And I honestly think, and what I don't like about some training groups, and there's some pros that do this too, is they'll take their training groups and they'll put them in the field to throw birds, which is, I understand why they do it. But like I tell people when they come here, we try not to do that, because you can't, if you're in a training group or you're a client or it's hard to teach you how to run a dog when you're in the field. So with these training groups, gather your money up, go get some high school kids and teach them how to throw birds for you. And you can have little bird throwers for you. You guys can all sit at the line and bounce ideas off of each other and be supportive. And, hey, throw that again. Hey, what should I do here? Because if you're in the field, you can't communicate to each other back and forth. I mean, that's a huge thing to me. But it sounds like, Eric, you have a fantastic training group that the biggest thing is don't try to win the training session. That's not done. Don't ever try to do that. That's the number one thing. And unless you've got a really, really good pro in this training group, which I don't think you do, but it's all really good amateurs. Unless you have a really, really good pro, everybody's learning, and not everybody knows everything. And what works for Eric's dog may not work for Elliott's dog. And bounce those ideas off of each other and just be supportive. It sounds like you're doing whatever you're doing it great.
All right. Well, that's all of them. We need more questions, so you can submit those either on the Facebook group, the Flatlander Kennels Podcast with Chris Jobman Facebook group, or the Facebook page. Make sure and give us a follow over there. We've got both of those, and as we release episodes, we will be putting them onto the Facebook page so you guys can share them. We want to grow this, and the best way to do it is if you guys share the episodes and tell your fellow trainers, tell all the dog people make sure and let them know about this podcast, because there's not really algorithms with podcasts like there are on YouTube or Instagram. So we need you guys' help by just sharing this podcast with the dog people that you know.
Yeah. And it's good. I'm glad you said that, because we are looking for some partners right now. We've got some in the works. We've developed our brand and our podcast up to an acceptable level of followers, listeners, and we are getting some partners now. If you are interested in being a partner, let us know. Get a hold of Elliott. We are doing some of those sort of things, and we are going to start having some eventually down the road, some giveaways, some really fun stuff coming down the road. We just got to get together with Elliott, and we'll figure it out. But we're going to start being more interactive with our members and our listeners.
And contact information is always in the description, and you can message us at the Facebook group as well. So we're here if you need us for anything. So good job on those answers, Chris. I hope that knee continues to heal for you and you can get back out there.
We'll be all right. Well, my poor wife, I'm going to get a bell, though, I think. I'm going to get a bell and see how that goes. So, but all right, Elliott, I appreciate it. Thank you for everybody for listening and joining. See everybody at the line. Take that aim.
I've got to strike this chord with the humble hearts. I'm bearing heavy chains and blue collar scars.